Hello everyone, this is Venom Geek Media here, and today's just going to be a bit of a shorter video. Given that we are looking into the 22nd century, it's something that you guys seem to have a lot of interest in, I think it's actually really worth talking about the portrayal of the Vulcans in Enterprise. Because interestingly, this was a very key point of controversy back when Enterprise came out. If you go and look at the reviews on Ex Astra Scientia, Bernard Schneider didn't really take to the series initially because he didn't like the portrayal of Vulcans in the series. They're not portrayed in a particularly charitable way. Now, on one level, they give kind of context for why that is, and also there's kind of other reasons to take into account as well. And really what I'm going to do here is try to explain that from the Vulcan perspective. So what this video is, as you will see by the title, it's First Contact from the Vulcan's perspective, because I think that will kind of help explain why the Vulcans made certain decisions and acted in a certain way towards the humans and towards Jonathan Archer. There's obviously, real life reasons for why the Vulcans are portrayed in that fashion, not least because Enterprise is a show of the early 2000s. You remember the early 2000s, they were a very different time. You wanted characters with attitude. So I think that's perhaps something that really shaped how Archer was played in Enterprise, and then how the Vulcans were then played to sort of contrast him. So I think there is a little bit of, each Star Trek show, they're timeless to an extent, but there is also a little bit of the attitudes and fashions of the time in each of them, and you can see that in Enterprise and how Archer behaves, particularly in the first two seasons. Like, I could go on a whole rant about Enterprise and its place within the history of the early 2000s, but we won't do that. If Archer represents the American with an attitude, then the Vulcans were there to represent, the French and the Europeans generally, or what an American thinks the Europeans are like. I would also just point out that Archer is a complete dick in particularly the first season of Enterprise. He gets a little bit better in season 2. He really gets worn down through seasons 3 and 4, learns a little bit of humility and self-reflection there. But Archer is a dick. And I think to an extent the Vulcans are just responding to him in kind. Because, while Vulcans claim to have a control on their emotions, that doesn't give you complete license to be a dick to them, which Archer is many times. Anyway, aside from Archer, let's talk about the broader context of human-Vulcan interaction. Vulcans obviously have a very clear interest in humans. Humans are very similar to them, if not biologically, then certainly historically and culturally. There's an awful lot that the Vulcans see in human history reflecting their own history. And so that's why every few decades they would visit Earth, because they wanted to kind of keep a close eye on them, see what they were up to, because they're also trying to learn things about themselves as they're studying humans. So they want to see kind of, were there other things that could have happened in our history? Could different things have gone different ways? Real original series style of exploration of, what happened if such and such a society continued to exist into modern times? That's really what they're doing. And of course, every few decades is like no time to the Vulcans. So that's kind of one of the key things to bear in mind, is the Vulcan perception of time compared to the human perception of time, and how, technology and things progress over time. Very different. And so that's another contributing factor to their interest. From Carbon Creek, we know that they visited at some point in the 1950s? I think Carbon Creek is set, 40s, 50s? And then we know that they visit again sometime like in the 80s or 90s. And then, of course, 2063. I think in the 1990s when they visit, they actually come down to the planet, because at that point, the planet has seemingly avoided nuclear annihilation. The Cold War that they had seen in previous decades was now over. So the Vulcans are like, maybe these humans aren't going to blow each other up. Okay, let's go down and have a little snoop around. As they then move towards World War III, as they return, like, say, during the 2020s or the 2050s, their optimism begins to drop off a bit, and they're like, oh no, maybe. And then, of course, by the time, they visit again in 2063, they see from long range that Earth has indeed nuked itself, so they're only passing by. It's like, okay, we've now lost interest. We know how this part goes. So, that's kind of the Vulcan perspective. But then they catch a warp signature, and they realize that despite having nuked themselves, the humans have managed to develop warp drive. Now, as a result, they took a very strong interest and went down to have a real look and meet the humans that had somehow managed to achieve warp drive despite nuking themselves almost back to the Stone Age. That's one of the reasons that the Vulcans are interested, is that the humans seem to recover from their own self-inflicted wounds very quickly, and that was very interesting to the Vulcans. So when the Vulcans come down, make first contact with humans, they find humans to be quite, okay, yeah, they've watched them afar, but they've not had necessarily close contact with them properly, and they find that humans are both intriguing and scary. They scare and intrigue me. So there's a simultaneous desire exhibited by the Vulcans to study the humans and to see kind of what they're going to do, but at the same level there's also this kind of urge to contain the humans because they're really chaotic and quite frightening creatures. So this leads to the formulation of an official policy towards Earth and towards kind of how the Vulcans are going to play this. And that policy is known as sandbox policy. So the Vulcans basically say to the humans, we're going to secure the perimeter of Earth. We're going to secure a load of systems going from, Berengaria up to, somewhere where they start bordering on Andoria. They're going to demarcate a zone and say, look, this is the safe zone. Don't go outside this safe zone. You're safe here, and we'll protect you from any big bad threats like Klingons or Orions or Andorians. We'll take care of you, but you have to stay inside the perimeter. They do not do internal policing, so the Kenziti problem, that's on Earth to deal with, and also the Vulcans are kind of ill-equipped to deal with Kenziti. The Vulcans are equipped to fight large-scale general fleet actions against a similar large conventional fleet. They're not really designed to take on raiders, and so, Earth is going to be better equipped to do that anyway, and they also want to see what the humans will do as the humans are fighting those campaigns against the Kenziti pirates. The Vulcans are watching and seeing how humans treat the Kenziti, and, are they a bit too much like us? That's something that they're keeping in mind as they're watching the humans. So they will not do internal policing, and they will not protect Earth ships that go beyond this perimeter. You can leave. The Vulcans will strongly say to you, maybe don't do that. Maybe it's a not good idea. I'm not going to come and save you if you do. That kind of thing. The Vulcans were, they're not actively stopping. They're not flying up to ships attempting to go beyond this perimeter and saying, no, you have to stay in here. They're just saying, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. It's not a good idea. But, the Vulcans have their limits. They can't be everywhere at once. Human curiosity far outweighs and overpowers Vulcan caution. Vulcans are curious creatures, but they also temper that curiosity with logic and reason and healthy caution. Humans do not. And so they're kind of going to always be outmaneuvered by human curiosity and humans going, ooh, shiny thing. And the Vulcans are like, no, stop, no, don't. I wonder, by the time of Enterprise, when, the Vulcans are saying, don't do that, it's not a good idea. Don't send one ship out there with Warp 5, it's not going to end well. And it's almost like Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, isn't it? As he gets more and more sick of the kids, and he's just like, oh, no, please, stop, come back. Oh, no, oh, what a shame. It's kind of like that, I feel. They just slowly become more and more exasperated to the point of just utter, they're at their wits' end. By the time they're dealing with Archer, they're at their wits' end, and they just have no patience for humans anymore. because they're trying to do all these nice things for humans, and the humans are like, yeah, but I want to do this. I want to be chaotic. And the Vulcans are just like, why? Why are you doing all this? So their simultaneous goals were to protect humanity, but also contain them. They're also thinking long term. Remember what I said about Vulcan, the perception of time to Vulcans. The Vulcans are capable of some very long-term planning because they live a very long time. And so they're fully aware that, within only a lifespan of them, which is like 100, 200, 150, 200 years, within that single Vulcan lifespan, human technology is going to develop considerably. And they do want to keep an ally in their back pocket against the Andorians, just in case. At the same time, they also want to make sure that humans can kind of prove themselves. That's why they let the Kinziti crisis play out, why they let that Kinziti conflict play out. They want to get an estimate of what humans are like and, how dangerous really are they. This is still a scientific project. They're observing human development even as they enter into the realms of interstellar politics. They're constantly watching and going, yes, interesting. You could call that Vulcan arrogance. They regard everything as a science project. Like I say, the real thing that the Vulcans are doing when they're being quite controlling is because they understand where Earth is now, and they're trying to see where they will be. And they are trying to be... It's funny. They're trying to engage in the Prime Directive because they see, it's almost like they go see the warp ship and they're like, okay, well, it's fine to make first contact. And it's like, whoa! Okay, you build a warp ship. Everything else is in a complete state. And it's like, yeah, okay, we actually have to be quite careful with what we do here because your society is not as developed as we assumed it would be. So, yeah, okay, what do we give you? What do we not give you? And, again, because the Vulcans are engaged in scientific process, they don't want to taint the results of the experiment. So they're very reluctant to give the humans their technology because they want to see what human technology is. Credit to the Vulcans. If they gave humans their technology and humans would reverse engineer it, they're just reliant now off of Vulcan technology, and I think to an extent they were doing it kind of out of the humans' best interests, even if it didn't seem like that. They wanted the humans to learn from themselves and thus build up independent capacity. They did not want to make a complete vassal state out of the humans. They don't have the resources to support that. They don't want to make the humans completely reliant on them. They want to build up a potential future ally. So, in conclusion, the Vulcans did not purely enact this sort of sandbox policy to protect humans. They didn't do it purely out of the goodness of their own heart. They did have their own agenda behind it. But they were being very pragmatic. They were engaging in long-term strategic planning. The problem they have is that the humans did not play ball and, kept on outflanking their expectations and doing unpredictable and weird things. And, that made it very difficult for the Vulcans to guide humanity in any direction. But it did make for some very interesting scientific observation. While the strategists have their head in their hands because they can't bear to see as the humans just put all of their carefully laid plans to the torch. At the same time, you've got all these anthropologists and scientists going, oh, that's very interesting. That's new. Haven't seen that before. That's quite funny, isn't it? And so in conclusion, like the Romulans, the Vulcans underestimated humanity and as a result were swept up into the tides of history and those tides that would lead them to founding the Federation with the humans, which was not anything that was anticipated by Vulcan anthropologists or scientists and historians. They definitely didn't see that one coming. In that way, the tide sort of swept them away. However, it is interesting to note that the Vulcans are the first ripple in the pool that leads to that tidal wave of change that leads to the Federation. If the Vulcans had not made first contact with humans, none of that would have happened. Now, I think, there's a whole separate question about what, how first contact with the Andorians would have been, and that's a question for another day. But these are my thoughts on the Vulcan perspective of early human space travel. So I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do I give the Vulcans too much credit? Or am I being quite fair? Do I not give them enough credit? Are the Vulcans really the unsung heroes of the Federation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I will see you guys in the next video. thank you to my members, my Navarks, Jeffrey Ballard, Tully DT, David Reeves, and Rella. My commanders, Captain's Quarters, Chase Rector, PQSK, Philip Tye, Jeff Hallam, Bird Monster, Mark Philippe, Robert Sampson, Sean Farrell, Narata, Dasplas, Adam Bowman, Nathaniel Mead, DM Tribal Typhoon, Gabe Logan, Mr. Fleagle, and Nicholas Walsh. And I salute my Centurions, Pendlebury, Marcus Hall, Julian Arnott, Freedom Trooper, Okolcatum Quaesto, Squadra Course, John Nicole, Athes Collection, and Tobias Klein. And I thank all my loyal sub-lieutenants. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, and I will see you all in the next video.